My girlfriend would only date me if I did really bad things. Addison, Phil, some other guys and I were at the police station. The police had taken us in for trespassing. None of us could speak or even look at one another. The environment was filled with tents. We were waiting for our parents, hopeful that they'd get us out, but scared at the same time. It all started with me, a good boy turning bad. In the mid-year, a new girl transferred to our high school. Her name was Addison. She had brown hair and blue eyes. She was beautiful. But before we move on, like this video, hit that subscribe button, and activate the notification bell. This will let you live 20 amazing years longer. Trust me, it works. She was in the same class as me, but she was mostly at the back with the cool kids. Yeah, she hung out with the troublemakers, but she had an influence on all. Everyone in the school hallway would stop whatever they were doing to say hi to her whenever she was passing by. Meanwhile, I would always get nervous and run to someplace where I couldn't be seen or noticed by her. I feared she wouldn't like me because I wasn't a cool kid. However, I did have that wishful thinking. If I could only gather enough courage, I will be able to talk to her. Days passed with me just thinking about how to impress her. One day, I was in the school garden, under a tree, eating my lunch by myself. As I was chewing through my sandwich, I heard some people on the other side of the tree. "So, who's up for it?" one of them said. "Look, guys, stealing test questions from the teacher's desk, that's too risky. I'm out," the other one said. I heard him leaving. Then a girl spoke. "That could get us expelled. I'm scared." By this time, I was really curious to see who they were. I got up and walked around and saw them. I was shocked. She was there. Addison was in that group who were planning to steal the test questions. I wanted to run away, but I just froze. They instantly saw me. They were all from my class, the ones from the back. Phil, one of the boys, started shouting, "Hey, are you spying on us, creep?" I didn't know what to say, especially because Addison was there. I just stuttered. I can help you." They looked at me in surprise. "Why would you want to help us?" Phil replied. I wanted to tell them that I wanted to do it for Addison and be her hero, but I didn't. Then Addison spoke up. "Well, it doesn't matter why. It only matters that he's going to do it." My heart fluttered. She defended me. Well, not exactly, but still, it felt like a dream. "Okay then, it is tonight. Be here at 7, outside," Phil said. After that, they started to leave and I stepped aside from their way. I nervously took a glance at Addison. As she was leaving, she looked at me and smiled. That was the most beautiful smile I had ever seen. I almost fainted. That moment replayed in my head again and again as if someone was replaying their favorite song. I didn't even realize that it was already time for me to go in. I went in and the rest of the day went by. As soon as school was over, I ran out and headed straight to my house. After reaching the house, I went to my room and started thinking about how to pull off the plan. I wanted to impress Addison. I remembered that I had all black sweats set in my closet. I opened my closet and pulled it out. I also got a black hat and a small flashlight from my dad's room. I laid all the things on my bed and waited for the evening. And so it was evening. My parents had already gone out for a fundraiser dinner, so I didn't have to worry about making an excuse to get out of the house. I just put on the clothes and hat, put the flashlight inside the pocket, and headed out. I reached outside the school, as Phil had said, just in time. Phil and some other guys were already there, but Addison wasn't there. We had to wait for a few minutes, and then she was there too. She looked gorgeous, but I didn't want to be distracted because I had to pull off the plan. I was the one who had to go in, and everyone else was on the lookout job. We went around and were right outside the gate. Phil had distracted and stolen some keys from the day guard, but we had to lure the night guard out for me to get in. Phil and the guys picked up some stones and threw them out opposite to where we were standing. The stones made noise as if someone was running. "That should do the trick," Phil said. It did. The night guard came out rushing and went to the direction of the sound. In the meantime, I ran inside the school gate, very gently, and into our classroom building. It was dark everywhere, so I had to take every step very carefully. I wanted to pass at least the hallway before I turned the flashlight on so that the guard wouldn't notice. I passed the hallway and reached near my classroom. I took out the flashlight from my pocket. One of the keys that Phil stole during the daytime was for this class. I unlocked the room and went to the teacher's desk. The drawers were locked, so I looked around and saw a paperclip on the desk. I started picking the lock with the paperclip. After constantly trying for a while, it finally opened. "Yes," I whispered to myself. It was not something to be proud of, but I was happy. I opened the drawer, grabbed a copy of the test questions, put it in my pocket, and got ready to leave. I got out of the classroom, but now came the harder part. I had to sneak out without the guard seeing me. I walked back through the hallway near the exit door, but I made a silly mistake. I forgot to turn the flashlight off, so as I reached the door, I saw a man on the other side of the glass. I got spooked out and screamed. I thought it was a ghost. The door opened and he came in. It was the guard. He grabbed me by my collar and checked my pockets. He found the test questions. He must have figured out that I was a student because he didn't call the police. He called the principal. He took me to the principal's office to wait for her to arrive. I was so scared. My heart was beating out my chest. The principal arrived shortly and instantly recognized me as she got in. She knew that I was a straight-A student, so I had no need to steal test questions. She lectured me for a good amount of time and called my parents. She told them everything that had happened. They were so ashamed and disappointed for the first time. They requested the principal not expel me. She just gave me 2 hours of detention after school for 3 weeks. My parents apologized for the trouble, and then we left and drove back home. The next day, Phil and Addison met me in the hallway and asked me what happened. The guard caught me, and now I have to stay in detention 2 hours after school, I said. We ran as soon as we saw the principal's car. You're not mad, right? Phil asked. No, not at all. I'm glad you did, I replied as I looked at Addison, who was also looking back at me. You're so cool, Blake, she said as she smiled. That was all I needed. I wanted to impress her, and I did. I smiled back at her, and we headed to our class. After the school hour was over, I was going down to the library for the detention. While I was walking through the hallway, Addison stopped me. Hey, stop, she said as she came walking from behind. I stopped and looked back. Skip the detention, she said. I got confused. I'll get in trouble, I replied. Bad guys get in trouble all the time. I like bad guys, she said in a quirky tone. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. She spoke again. Date with me or detention, you choose. My heart leaped. She asked me for a date. I was beyond happy and excited. There was no way I was going to detention over that. So Addison and I left the school together for our date. The next day, I arrived at school. Addison was waiting for me outside. We went inside together holding hands. Everyone was looking at us and talking about us. I couldn't believe what was happening. The most beautiful and popular girl in school was my girlfriend. However, my moment was ruined as soon as it started, as I was called into the principal's office. I went to the office with a little fear. I knew what she was going to say. As I went in, she started to lecture me. Blake, how dare you skip detention? I gave you a chance. I'm calling your parents to come and pick you up. You're expelled, she said. I got a feeling like I would faint. I apologized and begged her, but she didn't listen. My parents came in and even offered money in some kind of fund, but she didn't accept it. I was expelled. We drove home. My parents didn't say a word to me because of their disappointment. Immediately, as we reached home, I went straight to my room and texted Addison. The principal expelled me, I wrote and sent it. I got an instant reply. She's a bitch. I smiled and put down my phone, but I got another text. Phil and the other guys are breaking in the state park tonight. You should come. It'll be fun, it read. I thought for a while. Will it be a good idea? I've just gotten expelled from school. But again, I didn't want Addison to break up with me and get with Phil or any other guy, so I decided to go. Sure, I texted back. In the evening, I sneaked out and headed toward the state park. Phil, Addison, and some other guys were already there. The gates to the park were closed and locked, so we walked around to get an easy wall to climb and jump in. After looking for a while, we found it. We climbed it one by one. I went first and jumped to the other side. Then Addison jumped. I caught her. Then Phil and the other guys also came in. We went to a spot and sat down. Phil had brought some beer with him. He handed one to everyone. I never had alcohol in my life, but I also took one just to impress Addison. But even before we opened the beer, we heard some footsteps coming towards us. We remained quiet, but the footsteps came closer and closer, and suddenly we had a flashlight pointed towards our faces. The men caught us and cuffed us. They were 2 policemen and the park guard. We were taken to the police station. Now I was scared out of my gut. I didn't want to face my parents. I knew that they would be furious. But the policemen called all our parents one by one. My parents came rushing in. I could see disappointment and worry on their faces. They talked to the police chief for some time, made a deal with them, and took me home. Nobody said a word throughout the ride, but instantly as we reached inside the house, my dad started shouting, "How many times are you planning to disappoint us in a day?" I was ashamed. "The next time you do something like this, you'll no longer be a part of our family," he said. I wanted to cry, so I ran to my room. After some time alone in my room, I heard a knock on the door. It was my mom. She came in and sat on the bed with me and started to talk. "You were such a good boy. What happened to you?" And the next thing, she burst out crying. I felt so bad seeing her cry. I hugged her and told her that I would never do anything that would disappoint her ever again. After she left the room, I deleted Addison's number from my phone. The next day, I got a ticket to a boys-only boarding school in another country and never looked back. Thanks for watching. Have you ever done something for your significant other that you didn't want to? Let us know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe and check out the other interesting videos on the channel.